Hello, everyone. I hope that the sound is catching. Welcome back to Dishin With Democracy. This is our 8th episode today, and we are so excited to be back. Dishin With Democracy is a virtual podcast hosted by members of the Center for Civic Justice community, just so we can have open discussion about important civic topics and things that are happening around the world us today. I will now let my team introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, I'm Isabella. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a junior here at Stony Brook, majoring in poli-sci and on a pre-law track. And I'm super excited to be here with all you, and I can't wait to talk to you.
Hi guys, my name is Leslie and I also use she, her pronouns and am on the pre-law track. I'm a third year double majoring in psych and sociology, and I'm really excited to be part of this project and hear what you guys have to say.
Hi, beautiful people. My name is Chloe, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm a freshman here at Stony Brook, and I'm majoring in marine vertebrate biology, and I'm really excited to be here.
Hi everyone, my name is Faria. I'm a freshman studying political science on a pre-law track. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm really excited to be part of this project today.
Thank you, everyone, for introducing yourselves. So today's episode is going to be a little bit special. We are going to have discussion with other Stony Brook students about the topic of immigration. We just wanted to share the students' community's opinions on why immigration is important and why talking about immigration advocacy is important in our community. I will now introduce our first guest speaker, but before I do that, I'm going to introduce myself because I just realized I didn't do that. My name is Maria Zunio, and I'm a senior psych major on the pre-law track. I'm an undergraduate coordinator at the Center for Civic Justice, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. We are now going to welcome Kiara.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kiara. I am a senior here at Stony Brook University, majoring in business marketing, and I am an intern at the Civic Center for Justice, and my pronouns is she and her.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kiara. So to start things off, we just wanted to ask you what immigration means to you in your own words and what it signifies to you.
Immigration is really important to me because I am a first gen. I come from parents and everyone else who are from a different country, Trinidad. I am the first person in my family to be born here in America, and it's really important because my mom came here with at 17 years old, straight out of high school, pursuing like a new life, and she had a kid young and she worked so hard. And I think immigration is like about inclusiveness. Like I think people need to have the opportunity to want to change their lives. That's why they come to America. And what was the next question?
That's a good response. We just wanted to kind of just see what we obviously all know, like the textbook definition of immigration, just being the migration of people, but we just wanted to hear what what you wanted to add to that definition. And I think that you explained it really well. I, for one, understand completely that sentiment. I'm not one of the first people in my family to be born here. I mean, all my cousins are, but we are the first generation that are born here. So I do get that sentiment of coming from a different country and trying to reestablish yourself here for a better future. So thank you for that.
All right, awesome. So, continuing with that, as you may know, the U.S. is known as a country of immigrants. And so, why do you think it's important for domestic and international students to talk about immigration legislation?
I think it's important because it brings awareness to the cause. I think it can reach a further audience than the people who are just around you. Like you might inspire other people to get involved, and then you might teach them something they didn't know before.
I really love that perspective. Thank you so much.
So speaking about legislation, as we have seen in recent years, there's been an increased push for anti-immigration legislation. So how do you think current legislation is affecting the future of students in the U.S.?
Can you repeat that question? Sorry, I missed it.
Yeah, no problem. So speaking about legislation, as we've seen in recent years, there's been this increased push for anti-immigration legislation. So how do you think current legislation is affecting the future of students in the United States?
I think a lot of the current immigration has a lot of kids worried about their futures and if they're going to be able to stay in this country. Um, the current legislation, it it's not really effective. Like it has people, like I don't know how to explain it. It doesn't have it has people worried because you spent your life here and you adapt to certain ways of life, and then the immigration laws are changing constantly because of like the leaders of our country keep changing, and it's different parties and different people, so it's never like a secure thing for people who want to live here. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think there definitely needs to be changes and more awareness on immigration legislation, especially.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that. I definitely agree with you on that. I think that a lot of students having Stony Brook having like a big international student population, I think those legislations can definitely like target them. And to kind of continue off that, like immigration policies, as we know, have the power to create good and bad change. An example is granting students visas to be able to study here, or on the contrary, having the ability to separate families. So, how do you think that we as a society can better push for immigration advocacy? Why do you think this is important for students who aren't necessarily from an immigrant background to consider this advocacy?
Um, I can I say I forgot the question.
Yeah, I can repeat it for you. So, the first one is just how do you think that we as a society can better push for immigration advocacy?
Okay, I think that's kind of like a hard question because there's so many different ways you can push for immigration, but everyone has a different way of viewing it. I think getting people involved is easy to say, but it's like hard to do. And you have to find ways, even like you said, getting people who are citizens here in America to get involved. I I think it's hard for them to get involved when they can't relate to it, right? But like you We I don't know. It's like I don't know ways you can get people involved, but because to me it's something personal, so I can't open my um I don't want to say my brain up to like how do you get other people to get involved. Like I know one of the reasons like I started researching more about immigration is through like even being a child of an immigrant. I had a professor when I took a college class, a professor's assistant who was an immigrant and was scared of deportation because he was a kid under the DACA. So he was during that time 2017 he was scared of being deported, and it was like it really touched home for me, and that's what got me involved because even though my family are immigrants, I never had that like uh, experience of feeling like they're going to be deported or something's going to happen to them. So I think it's hard to get other people involved when it's not personal to them because I think in America especially, I believe in America especially, we live in like our own bubbles that, like other people say that America thinks they're the greatest country. Americans only think about themselves. So it's hard to like branch out of that mindset and convince people like, hey, this is what's going on.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. Thank you for the answer. I think that it is hard to kind of find a solution, but kind of going off the personal matter and how it relates to each other and like how it affects each other, I think that's where it starts, like a conversation with each other and kind of like discussing ways to kind of get to a solution or get other people involved. Thank you.
I actually also agree with that. I think that in order to advocate for this, whether you're a student that's domestic, international, you have to talk about immigration because you have to look at how it affects the people around us and your friends and your peers. Okay, and my question for you is, in 2021, the Biden administration attempted to push the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021. The center of this bill was granting an 8-year path to citizenship for illegal immigrants in the U.S. and would give immediate green card eligibility for farm workers, temporary protected status recipients, and those who came to the U.S. as minors. However, this bill was turned down, and currently the Biden administration is trying to push this bill once again. Biden believes this will improve a quote unquote broken immigration system. How do you feel about this statement? And would you say that you agree that this bill may improve a broken system, or do you disagree?
I think the bill, I don't know if it's gonna prove a broken system. I think it's the first step to fixing a broken system, but it's not gonna change everything in one day. I think it's a great pathway of saying 8 years, green card, but it's a great first step. But there is still people who's like is going to be affected by like stuff that are not included in the bill. There are people who are you have to like it's going to have issues in it, nuances that people are going to find and people can't get over. Like it's going to help, you said, farmers and people are doing um basically labor work, you're saying, but like it didn't like touch on like certain points of like the children who are born in different countries who are coming here, or like other people are not just like labor workers. It's but it's a great pathway, I think. Yeah.
I definitely agree with what you said. I feel like there's a lot of steps that we have to take in order to improve an immigration system, and I think this is just the first one. And I definitely think there's a lot more that can be done to fix it. So I really appreciate your answer. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree that I think I side with that view that it's a bit naive to say it will completely fix this broken immigration system, but I do also feel that it's a great stepping stone to improve the immigration system. So thank you, Kiara, for that. So where do you consume most of your media pertaining to immigration? So for example, newspaper, social media, TV, radio. And do you think that has an effect on how you interpret legislation, bills, and things like that?
Yeah, I definitely do think I consume most of my media, I think, from like I read articles, like you see them online, but I feel the articles sometimes it shifts in one direction depending on what source you're reading, just like if you watch the news and stuff. So you're going to have like somewhat of a bias unless you're reading several articles at a time. But like you just go to like your main news source, it's going to have some biases. But yeah, I usually read articles and then it captures, like you see it on Twitter first, like trending or like something, and then you go and you Google it more because you become interested in it, and that's how you get caught up in it. But um the news source is basically however you sway and you consume your news.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that point. Thank you for your insight. I definitely agree. It changes, the news changes depending on where you're getting it from. Thank you.
So thank you for that, Kiara. I think that it's always important to consider where you're getting your news from and where you're getting your media from. I agree with both of you guys that when you're looking at social media and when you're looking at all these news articles, it's always easy to pick at what you're more comfortable reading. Most media start to target with what they already know that you like based on like what you're already searching up. So I think that a lot of that media becomes biased, and things like immigration always get lost in the mix of that, and you're always going to get very biased reviews on things like that. Like, if you support a certain party or you support a certain view, you're going to get news articles that automatically tell you that they're in support of a bill, or vice versa. If you're against a certain bill, against a certain party, you're going to get news articles that tell you this is the bill that they're trying to impose, like we should be against it. So I think it's also just to be mindful of the kind of media that we're looking at. And I think it just brings about, I think this conversation, like it's important to discuss and have an open conversation about all types of views, because while we all may share a common view and think that something's important, someone may have an opposing view and may have a very justified point for that view. So I did want to ask you, I guess, more. I mean, you have already touched on it, but I did want to ask you specifically to Stony Brook, why you think it's important. What can Stony Brook do as a university for just this conversation, just to keep it going? I think that we have the Center for Civic Justice, for example, that does things already. But what do you think something that Stony Brook University can do to support having that conversation to begin with?
I think we should have like more events and open dialogue events as well to get other students to come and participate, because at Stony Brook, what I think we do well is like they throw really good events. So I think on top of that, if they want to create awareness of this issue of immigration, they need to start having events on it. Because I've never been to an event about immigration at Stony Brook. Because we like every week there's like a commuter event, like something like immigration event will be great. Um, I think as well as maybe incorporating it into like a history class we have here at Stony Brook, or like creating your own class on it as well. So I think there's so many ways you can go about it. Like you can do fun events so that people will be like, okay, I'm coming, and then they learn something at the same time as like maybe meeting friends, or have like a panel of kids, of students on at Stony Brook, immigrant students, right? At Stony Brook, to come have a panel event, and you can teach someone about it, like, or the professors can give the students incentives to go, and even with those incentives you can learn something, because people might just like go because my professor is giving me credit, and then all of a sudden you learn something. Now you have like a new passion.
Thank you for that. I think you bring some really, really great ideas actually that I myself hadn't even thought of. Like this was my own initiative to try to start the conversation somewhere, but I think you bring an interesting point. Having a panel of immigrant students or like international students would be great. Having professors support those kind of events and provide incentives is also a really great idea. Because you're right, people will first go for like the credit, but then they come out of it by meeting new people and getting new passion. So thank you for that. I'm gonna write that down because those are great ideas. And then just one more question, just to wrap it up. I know that like you did touch upon it in the beginning a little bit, but I just wanted to ask you why you wanted to be part of this episode, like you yourself.
At first, I was like, I don't know what I can really add. And I had to like really sit there and think about it. And then, because I was like, what else can I just like, I was like, I have no experience, because I put stuff in the back of my head and I just like don't touch it. So I just started thinking back to like even like the story I told about my friend being on DACA and it being taken away in 2017. Like that came back to me in that exact moment when I was signing up. And I was like, wait, I remember this and how it made me feel during that time. So I was like, if I can like tell a story or just answer like your questions and say how I feel, then maybe other people will like, oh, I didn't think of it in that way.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really, again, do just appreciate you coming on here. And you did bring, at least to me, a lot of great points. And you brought a lot of ideas to the table that I think that even us all together having a conversation wouldn't have thought of without inviting you. I think that this is why we're doing this, talking to different students coming from different backgrounds, because everyone has a story to share, and they do, resonate with a certain topic for different reasons. So thank you for sharing that story with us, and for your time here. Um, is there anything else that you wanted to add before we let you go?
Oh no, that was it. I had fun. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us, Kiara. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. And thank you so much.
Bye, guys.
All right. We are now going to introduce our next guest of the day in just one moment. Okay, so I will now introduce Babana Bastola. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. I'm going to just add you onto the stream, and you can also go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Babana Bastola, and I'm in the Latino class where I got introduced to this podcast by my classmate. Her name is Cloney Kuhn. I think I'm pronouncing that right, but yeah, that's how I got introduced to this podcast.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us. And we just wanted to talk to you. I know you joined on a couple minutes before, and just saw us wrapping up our conversation with the last guest. But we just want to be able to hear your opinion on, like this topic of immigration. And I just wanted to get right into it, and just continue on just talking about the life for immigrants in the United States. So I wanted to get your opinion on what you think the most difficult task that immigrants in this country had to tackle, especially when it comes to political legislation that has been administered recently.
So I feel like as an immigrant, I do relate to a lot of the struggles that have been all of us have been facing. I came here like 5 years ago, so I feel like I do know a lot of this because I'm still um, adjusting to a lot of the things that I'm not used to. I feel like that really puts things into perspective for me, myself. And I feel like one of the main part was when I was coming in, Trump had just like won the election, which was like a big part for immigration and how the would be formed later on. I feel like that put a lot of immigrants into risk of not getting a job and just facing a lot of discrimination within the country. I feel like that really gave me an idea of what I'm putting myself into. I feel like even when I was like 12 and seeing all the news, I feel like it just gave me like, oh, like this is going to be my life. I'm going to have to work even more harder to prove what I'm actually capable of without being judged of my background. I feel like that was really important to me. I also I need to add something. I feel like in class we talked about the nature of people being like a job is a job, and then being like everybody has to put in a certain amount of work even if it's bad. I feel like that's like a thing for immigrants. Like you have to do a job even if it's difficult, and don't really have a say for it because you have to make money and then provide for your family. It's not like it's easily accessible to everybody. It's just like whatever you get to do, you have to put your everything towards it, even harder than other people have to work for it. I feel like that's one of the things that everybody is brainwashed into think, and like most immigrants, especially, they don't even speak up for themselves because they don't feel like they've earned enough rights to speak up for themselves and then have a say in things.
That's actually a really good point, because I myself, I'm not an immigrant, so I wouldn't be able to say that I particularly understand that experience of having that fear and having to work hard in that sense. But just watching my parents grow up, and just telling me stories of how they came to this country and had to, do multiple jobs at a time to try to keep up. And like, I saw my own mom, she started off working in like a McDonald's, and then worked at a Dunkin' and like had multiple jobs where she kept trying to move up, just because she wanted to make ends meet. But as I started growing up, I would tell her, like you have to stick up for yourself, and like you are valued. And although sometimes certain laws and certain things that are surrounding us don't particularly let immigrants feel that way, I think that it is empowering to an immigrant population to feel that they do have a voice, and that's part of that starts here. So thank you for sharing that story with us. And thank you for bringing that point. I think it's a really good one.
Adding on to that, like I'm an immigrant myself, and I definitely understand your point of view when it comes to the added pressure that being an immigrant brings, especially in the United States, because you're scared to stand up and talk about what you believe because you're scared about what's going to happen if you do. So I definitely agree with you on that. My question for you is, recently, lawmakers have introduced several immigration bills. For example, one bill targets asylum. The passing of this bill would make it difficult to seek asylum in the United States for those individuals that may be in dire need of it. Another example would be the push to eliminate the diversity visa lottery program, which grants green cards to 50,000 randomly selected people from countries with low levels of immigration to the United States. What is your opinion on these types of bills, and what kind of effects do you think these bills would impose on the immigration population currently in our nation?
I've definitely heard about the lottery because I feel like from where I'm from, that's like a very popular thing. Even so many people from my own family have applied to the lottery where you get a green card and you're able to come to this country and make something of yourself. I feel like those really provide a stable situation for many people. It give them a hope of being, if they get lucky, they have a future later on. I feel like that's like a big part even now, for many people, because I feel like that puts a lot of pressure and opportunity into people who are actually do get selected for these programs and then are able to come here and work and then bring their families, and then that's how they start uh, making a name for themselves. I feel like that's like a very important thing even now, because I feel like so many people are undocumented, and that puts a lot of pressure into, like how I brought up my last point of being the added pressure of not being able to stand up for themselves, and not being able to speak up in the fear of getting deported, or like not being able to work anymore. I feel like um, even things like, even in my own family, so many people are not getting paid at a certain amount of money, like the amount is $15 an hour, but they're getting paid way less than that, and they're scared to stand up because there's a risk of them not even getting paid 15. I feel like that's like a very big impact of people, like removing all of those opportunities that they would just completely not be able to live their livelihood and provide for their family.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like these types of programs provide opportunities to get people out of places that they don't need to be in and they need to escape. And when you try to eliminate them, you're hurting a lot of people and the potential they can have in the United States. So thank you for your response.
Yeah, to kind of add on to that, I also really liked how you said that the lottery kind of gives families a little bit of hope, which I think is really important because a big part of the immigration process is lottery based, and I don't think a lot of people know that. So I just really liked how you put that. But to continue, would you describe immigration as an integral part of our communities across the nation? Like, what would you say it adds to our country as a whole?
I feel like immigration has a lot of benefits. I feel like this whole country is ran from immigrants from different parts of the world. I feel like this is not like one person's country. This is built from people all over the world, and it is what it is because of the people that were here and then built this country to the level that it has so much power now. I just feel like it adds to so many great minds come here, make something, like make inventions which is later on help the entire world. I feel like immigration is part of a big labor, even if that's even if it's unfair to those people who are doing these labor works and not getting paid the same amount. Immigration definitely has impacted this country and then made this what it is now and puts a lot of power. This country is so powerful today because of all the great minds that have immigrated from all over the country and made it possible for them to work towards a better future. That's what I think immigration will always have a big part of how this country is standing and will always stand for the rest of the time.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you just because I know a lot of people refer to America as the melting pot and kind of like the simulation of people kind of being the goal, but I in a lot of ways disagree with that. I think that we are more a salad bowl and like we all have our own individual kind of qualities based on our immigration, where we come from, and I think that's a big part of why America is, a very successful democratic nation compared to like others. Thank you for that.
Kind of bouncing off what you said on how like this country is built off of immigrants from all over the world, like what we learned in class yesterday about the breastfeeder program from like the 1940s to the 1960s, where we literally had like over the course of the whole program 200,000 immigrants coming from Puerto Rico and Mexico to like support the entire agricultural community during World War II while we had like people fighting, is really like important, and I really loved the perspective that you brought on that. For the next question, beautiful Isabella touched on it a little bit already. The United States is often described as a melting pot where diverse sets of cultures and ethnicities come together to form the rich fabric of our nation. What are your thoughts on this description, and would you say you agree or disagree?
I think I completely agree with the point. I feel like it's kind of similar to the answer that I gave for the question before. I feel like this is a country that is built up of immigrants' minds and a lot of the hard work that is put into this country. I feel like it's not. I feel like a lot of the hate crimes that we've faced when Trump was in presidency of being like go back to I don't think this country belongs to one particular group of people. I think this is built from many immigrants, and I feel like it's very wrong to put a certain group of people into the top and all of the others as a bottom, and not and not they're not giving the same opportunity as them because of a certain race or ideology that they have, that this country belongs to them and not as much as the other immigrants that have came here and built a name for themselves.
You said both of those answers beautifully. I really love how you put that because it's a great point. It's so true. And it's so funny because like talking on the media, like in the partisanship of it all, it really kind of builds the ideology that this place is like for one type of person. So I feel like things like this, like even like a little podcast is really important to just kind of have that discussion and be like, we are all in this together. And because this country is the way that it is, because we are such beautiful people just coming together and doing our thing. So thank you for that.
Yeah, again, I definitely agree with you both on that. And to kind of continue on with like the media perspective that you brought in just now, where do you personally consume most of your media pertaining to immigration? Do you think that that has an effect on how you interpret legislative bills or any of that sort?
Yes, I feel like as most teenagers do, we get most of our information like Instagram, and there's an article linked to it, and then we read. But my dad is also a translator and works with many immigrants. Into he translate important documents that is brought to court. So I feel like I learned most of my information from him as well. I feel like having someone in the family who is so passionate about immigration and immigrant bills and providing green card for people that are in desperate needs for them, that really gives me a perspective into how much it's really affecting other people, and how if we all come together and give them a certain opportunity, how much they can build off of that, and then how much they can actually progress in the future and make something stable for themselves. I feel like it is very hard to get a set like maybe a media that I'm getting information from. I feel like I'm getting it all over the place. Maybe it could be from class that I'm reading an article in class and I'm passionate about it, and I later on go home and read it. But it's also difficult because there most of the time it doesn't really give you a full perspective of things and gives you a perspective of a certain group of people that are in the article and not everybody who's affected by it. So I feel like it's very hard to judge how much it's affecting every single group of people, but not just one group of people. So I feel like I get my information from all over social media and not just one particular place.
Yeah, no, I agree as well. Just because it can feel overwhelming when you're getting into social media in general, kind of getting different sources from different perspectives, and also like journalism, they use tactics to kind of pull people in, to kind of swerve people to the right or the left. But I really liked how you tied in like your discussions with your dad, and like I definitely have that experience, and kind of the ones I resonate most with is like my conversations and discussions I have with people who are affected also by immigration and my family themselves. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really important to kind of gain different perspectives of that, especially like you said, lived experience of immigration. So thank you for that. I completely agree. But do you think there are aspects of immigration and just diaspora you wish you had learned in classes? And specifically, which aspects do you think would most benefit you today?
I feel like there's many aspects of immigration that we're still have not learned. I feel like we're still. I feel like being a student, I'm still in a little bubble. I don't really know how I'm gonna get treated after I'm done with college and pursuing a job that I really like. So I feel like that's an aspect that I really would love to learn about how, like in real world, I'm gonna get treated because of my background or like me being a certain from a certain country, how I'm gonna like get opportunities. I feel like most of the people, most of the education that we get, we're getting it from a one group of people, and so if I'm getting all this information about how one group of people is being treated and not a group of people that I'm from, I don't think I would get the same um, I would get the same thing as them. So I feel like it's very difficult to know what I'm like putting myself into. So I feel like it's really important to learn from every single group of people how they're gonna get treated in the real world, so we don't have to face the same struggle as our parents or like our grandparents have, and are actually able to speak up when something is going wrong.
Yeah, I think just gaining, like you said, a perspective just from an immigrant themselves can be very
Mhm.
impactful, especially informational on how to kind of better respond to that. So thank you.
Wait, I'm done with my thing, right?
Hi, sorry. It had
Oh,
just my computer just kicked me out, and I thought that the whole podcast had ended, so it freaked me out a second. But no, we just wanted to say thank you for coming on. I didn't get to hear like the last sentence that Leslie was saying, but I agree with
mhm.
like everything that you guys were all talking about and with the perspective that you brought here. I appreciate you coming on and just giving us that perspective from like an actual immigrant person that like you share, just a little bit of a different background than like someone who isn't an immigrant or someone who's just a child of an immigrant. So thank you so much. We hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and thank you again. It was nice meeting you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, guys. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye. Okay. So we're now just gonna introduce our next speaker for the day. Her name is Lillian Ubeda Ferreira. Lillian, I'm gonna add you onto the stream, and you can go ahead and introduce yourself once I add you.
Hi, how are you?
Hello.
Okay, so I'm gonna be speaking in Spanish, and I'm gonna be giving my answers, like all of them in Spanish. Buenos días, mi nombre es Lilian Ubeda Ferreira. Vengo de Paraguay, soy de Paraguay. Estoy en este país hace 4 años y soy estudiante de economía y estoy en mi segundo año en la universidad.
Bueno, muchas gracias por ser parte de nuestro episodio. ¿Tú quieres que te hagamos las preguntas en español o prefieres que lo hagamos en inglés y tú prefieres responder en español?
Como sea más...
No, tú dime, yo quiero que tú estés cómoda.
Está bien en español, ¿sí?
Ok, no hay problema. Entonces, voy a empezar. Hold on. Ok, so te quería preguntar, la palabra inmigración tiene su propia definición, obviamente, pero yo quiero que tú me cuentes tu opinión sobre esa palabra y lo que significa para ti.
Buena pregunta y muchas gracias. La palabra inmigración para mí tiene un profundo significado, ya que yo soy inmigrante. La palabra inmigración para mí significa mudarse de un país, de tu país de origen, para ir a otro país, para un futuro mejor, en busca de estudio, de trabajo. Entonces es básicamente dejar tu familia, dejar tus raíces, dejar tu cultura para ir a otro país a conocer y a integrarte. Eso es básicamente la palabra inmigrar, moverse de un lugar a otro.
Okay, muchas gracias. Como lo acabo de decir, la palabra tiene su propia definición, pero a veces hay partes de la palabra que personas a veces no piensan y entonces creo que la gente solo piensa que es un inmigrante, solo una persona que viene a otro país, pero no considera todo lo que agrega al país o lo que contribuyen. Muchas gracias. Te voy a hacer la siguiente pregunta también. Te quería contar sobre unas legislaciones que pueden afectar a los estudiantes como tú que vienen de otros países a estudiar acá. Un ejemplo sería una regulación que puso el presidente Trump en el año 2020. Durante la pandemia pasaron una ley que se llamaba el CARES Act de 2020 y era para ayudar al estatus económico de muchas personas en ese año por la pandemia, o sea, estudiantes, trabajos, lugares así. Y el presidente había puesto regulaciones para que los estudiantes que no califican para recibir dinero del gobierno, ese tipo de estudiantes no podían recibir dinero tampoco del CARES Act. Entonces, esto excluyó a estudiantes de DACA, a estudiantes indocumentados y otra vez, como te digo, estudiantes que no califican para la ayuda del gobierno. Entonces, esas personas no podían acceder a esa ayuda de emergencia en ese año cuando estábamos pasando algo muy grave. Pero basado en ese ejemplo, hay otras legislaciones también que han pasado así en los últimos años, pero ¿me puedes dar tu opinión sobre cómo este tipo de regulación pueden afectar a estudiantes internacionales, específicamente que vienen a la escuela de Stony Brook?
Claro que sí. Mi opinión acerca de esa legislación, yo no estoy de acuerdo. Para mí es un poco injusto, ya que yo pienso que todos merecemos el mismo respeto, los mismos derechos, las mismas obligaciones. Necesitamos que todo sea por igual, todo sea repartido por igual. Creo que es malo que solamente den para cierta cantidad de estudiantes, dejándolos de lado a estudiantes internacionales, ya que también ellos necesitan, también ellos están estudiando, también quieren un futuro mejor. Entonces creo que deberían de dar la oportunidad y equitativamente significa que igualmente a cada una de las personas, sin importar la raza, de dónde vengan, de qué país vengan, ya que uno está estudiando y está poniendo esfuerzo para eso.
Sí, muchas gracias, porque tienes razón en de que todos merecemos una oportunidad y solo por ser de un país o de una raza específica o por no calificar para una cierta ayuda, no debería de dejarnos de estudiar. Y yo sé que específicamente en el año del 2020, cuando vino el virus a todos los países, afectó a todo el mundo. Y yo creo que en eso estoy de acuerdo contigo que es injusto, que especialmente en una pandemia o en una situación así de esa circunstancia, que hayan regulaciones que no ayuden a ciertas personas que de verdad lo necesitan, porque ese es el punto, que hay personas indocumentadas o recipientes de DACA que no necesariamente están trabajando o que solo vienen acá a estudiar, no tienen de dónde, entonces que les nieguen ese tipo de ayuda y ese dinero creo que es muy importante reconocerlo y reconocer lo que eso significa para esas personas. So, muchas gracias.
Sí, gracias Lilian para su respuesta. Primero tengo que decir que esto para mí es, o sea, mi español no es así de perfecto como María, pero voy a intentar. Los Estados Unidos es conocido como un país de inmigrantes. ¿Por qué crees que es importante que estudiantes, ciudadanos y estudiantes internacionales platiquen sobre la inmigración?
Muchas gracias. Sí, entonces yo creo que es muy importante que todos tengan la palabra inmigración en mente para poder conocer más acerca de varias culturas, de diferentes personas, de dónde vienen, cuáles serían sus culturas. Tendría que haber más empatía entre los inmigrantes, conocerse más entre uno de los otros, ayudarse más como personas, porque yo creo que a veces uno se encierra mucho en uno y no piensan en lo que les puede estar pasando a la otra persona, pero yo creo que la palabra inmigración conlleva integración. ¿Qué significa eso? Que uno debe de interesarse por el otro, comunicarse para saber más y ayudar a las otras personas también.
Sí, gracias para su respuesta. Creo que sí es importante obtener diferentes perspectivas y creo que es algo que tiene que, pues, que persona tiene que hablar más sobre eso. So, gracias.
Hola Lilian, igual muchas gracias por tu respuesta. También yo, perdón, mi español no está muy bueno tampoco, pero voy a seguir con las preguntas. Son los Estados Unidos muchas de las veces es descrito como un sartén caliente, donde muchas culturas diversas y etnicidades se juntan y forman parte para crear una nación rica y diversa. ¿Qué piensas sobre esta descripción? ¿Estás de acuerdo o desacuerdo?
Estoy de acuerdo, esa palabra de sartén caliente es completamente de verdad, es completamente real, 100% yo lo entiendo, porque desde que yo he llegado a este país, yo veo mucha diversidad, veo gente de todos lados, de todos los países. Uno se sorprende cuando llega a este país porque nosotros cuando vivimos en nuestros países es pequeño, vemos, bueno, si sos paraguaya ves todo paraguayo, si uno es mexicano ves todo mexicano, pero cuando vienes a este país uno se sorprende porque no hay solamente una etnicidad, sino que hay varias personas de todos lados de los países, de todos lados, de todas regiones. Entonces yo creo que sí, esa palabra es 100% real. He conocido varias personas, uno puede conocer varios países, aprender de varios idiomas, entonces sí, yo creo que es muy cierto, es la verdad. Definitivamente los Estados Unidos es un país muy completo y lleno de otros países de diversidad.
Gracias. Estoy de acuerdo también porque y me gusta mucho cómo has describido tu experiencia aquí porque creo que es una atracción grande parte de los Estados Unidos, de la diversidad y como esa atracción de aprender y descubrir más de los demás, que como tú sabes, tú estás en Paraguay, solo hay paraguayos, pero aquí puedes comer de tal, de otro y aprender más idiomas y ya, gracias.
Sí, estoy de acuerdo. Creo que muchas personas olvidan que este país no es de, o sea, una persona, hay mucha diversidad de personas aquí y gracias por tu perspectiva en eso. En tu opinión, ¿tú dirías que a la inmigración es una parte integral de nuestra cultura y comunidades en todo el país? ¿Y qué dirías que agrega la migración a este país?
Sí, yo creo que sí, y yo creo que la inmigración agrega muchas cosas. Yo creo que la inmigración ayuda a crecer el país, a la popularidad, a la economía, porque muchos inmigrantes vienen a este país justamente buscando un futuro mejor, ya sea con un trabajo, o sea, para estudiar. Entonces yo creo que los inmigrantes aportamos, forjamos el crecimiento de este país, ya que estamos aquí para ayudar, ¿verdad? Y también para buscar, como dije antes, un futuro mejor con trabajo, estudio. Entonces, yo creo que ayudamos al crecimiento, a la economía, a la popularidad del país para que se conozcan más, para que otras personas conozcan acerca de este país, de lo que ofrece este país. Entonces, yo creo que sí, que aportamos mucho y que sí agregamos a este país.
Sí, también creo que definitivamente no hay mucha conciencia en que los inmigrantes dan a este país, porque creo que muchas personas muchas personas piensan mal unas veces a los inmigrantes y no saben que inmigrantes sí es algo integral para este país y este país ha crecido de personas inmigrantes. So, gracias por tu respuesta.
Y para agregarle también ese punto, creo que estoy de acuerdo con lo que dijo Leslie, que muchas de las personas ven a las personas inmigrantes o lo que las personas inmigrantes contribuyen a este país, no lo consideran como lo deberían, porque, no sé, solo porque hay un sistema en este país que como que a veces nos ve a los inmigrantes como personas chiquitas y a veces no ven lo que hemos contribuido a este país y no necesariamente son solo personas de países hispanos. Creo que muchas personas, bueno, por lo menos donde yo crecí, piensan que las personas hispanas son como los únicos inmigrantes y como que no hay otras personas de otros países que contribuyen también y eso no es cierto. Hay muchas personas de muchos países diversos que vienen a este país y que han contribuido en una manera u otra. A que este país crezca, como dijeron las dos, y para que sea lo que es hoy. Pero para te quería preguntar algo como que un poquito más diferente y volver al tema de la legislación y de lo político. Para darte otro ejemplo, en el año 2021, o sea, hace 2 años, la administración del presidente Biden trató de pasar una ley que se llamaba el Citizenship Act of 2021 y esta legislación otorgaría la ciudadanía en 8 años a los inmigrantes ilegales y les daría green cards, tarjetas verdes a los que trabajan en cultivación, a los recipientes de protección temporaria y también a los que vinieron a los Estados Unidos cuando eran menores, pero esta legislación no fue aprobada en ese año. Otra vez la administración del presidente lo está tratando de pasar otra vez, pero todavía está en conversación, todavía no se ha pasado, pero el presidente piensa que este tipo de ley o este tipo de legislación arreglaría el sistema quebrado, el sistema quebrado de inmigración que hay en este país. ¿Tú estarías en acuerdo o en desacuerdo con lo que dice el presidente que arreglaría el problema?
Yo creo desde mi punto de vista que para mí es una buena opción, para mí es algo bueno que se estaría haciendo, porque muchas veces hay familias separadas, niños separados de sus padres, eso es muy triste, entonces yo creo que mediante esta legislación, si eso se acepta, y como dice el presidente, que ayudaría a la inmigración quebrada que hay en este país. Yo creo que sí tiene un poco de sentido porque eso va a ayudar a que las familias estén juntas, a que no se separen, a darle el citizenship a la gente a los inmigrantes que están aquí con sus hijos trabajando, que yo creo que también, si después de esa cantidad de años, 8 años, creo que dice el, el- la cosa, que sí, que ya yo creo que uno se merece, si uno está 8 años trabajando en este país y esforzándose para quitar a su familia adelante, contribuyendo con este país, porque yo creo que todos hacemos algo y contribuimos algo, sea poco o sea mucho, pero uno desde que empieza a trabajar en este país o a estudiar, uno tiene que ir pagando al Estado, uno tiene que ir haciendo todo. Entonces, yo creo que sí, uno se merece y más si uno tiene familiares pequeños que necesitan de sus padres para que no se separen. Entonces sí, yo creo que eso ayudaría y que ojalá se acepte.
Estoy en acuerdo contigo porque creo que, o sea, tal vez esta ley, por decirle, no sería la solución completa para arreglar un sistema que ya está quebrado o roto, como le digan, pero creo que es una parte importante porque si se pasa una ley así, se pueden pasar más leyes que contribuyan a las personas que deberían de estar aquí. Estoy en acuerdo contigo porque mi mamá lleva aquí creo que ya 20 años y todavía no es ciudadana. Desafortunadamente, ella todavía está en su proceso, porque es un proceso muy largo y hay muchas personas que tampoco entienden que no todas las personas de todos los países los tienen iguales. A veces hay ciertas reglas para ciertas personas de ciertos países. Entonces, creo que ese tipo de leyes, por lo menos si puede ayudar a una persona, debería de pasarla. So, estoy en acuerdo. Muchas gracias.
Sí, igual creo que hablando de inmigración, todo cuenta. Cada ley que pasen, que ayudan a las familias, inmigrantes, estudiantes que están aquí estudiando, creo que en grande no va a fix everything, pero sí puede ayudar en una manera pequeña y después seguir y ojalá un día podamos tener un sistema que es más favorable para todos que vienen y que quieren un futuro más mejor. Y por última, también yo sé que ya tocaste de que eres de Paraguay y has venido aquí a estudiar, pero te quería preguntar, ¿por qué decidiste ser parte de este episodio? ¿Tienes alguna conexión personal con este tema?
Sí, muchas gracias. Y la verdad que sí, desde el primer momento que mi compañera está presente aquí también, en la clase de historia mencionó acerca de este podcast, que se trataba de inmigración. Entonces yo dije, oh, me interesó, me llamó la atención porque yo dije, oh, yo soy inmigrante, eso sería algo bueno, sería bueno de participar. Entonces yo dije, ¿por qué no? Entonces le hablé a Chloe y le dije que sí, que yo estoy interesada en que I want to do the podcast. So sí, me interesó por ser inmigrante justamente y dije, eso sería una buena oportunidad para crecer, para hablar acerca de eso, porque yo soy una inmigrante orgullosa y sé de dónde vengo y quiero mantener siempre mis raíces, sea que esté aquí por 20 años, 50 años, yo siempre quiero decir, ok, yo soy inmigrante, fui inmigrante, pasé por ese proceso, porque solo los inmigrantes sabemos lo que pasamos, cómo pasamos. Entonces yo quería hacer partícipe y ¿cómo se dice? Share, like compartir mi voz con el público, con mucha gente, para que ellos sepan lo que nosotros somos, un poquito de nosotros, por lo que estamos pasando, qué son las legislaciones que se imponen para nosotros, qué cosas el gobierno pone para los inmigrantes, qué cosas no. las injusticias que de repente hay. Entonces yo quería hablar sobre eso, quería aprender más, porque uno nunca para de aprender, uno siempre aprende algo más en el día a día. Yo no estaba muy, ¿cómo se dice? No conocía mucho acerca de estas legislaciones, pero sí, hoy aprendí de eso y dije, bueno, qué bueno que acepté hacer este episodio, que acepté ser parte de este podcast para aprender algo más. Y sí, estoy muy feliz de haber sido partícipe. Muchas gracias por la invitación. Y sí, me siento identificada y acepté justamente por eso, como conté anteriormente, soy una inmigrante orgullosa de mis raíces, soy paraguaya, vine a este país para estudiar, quiero un futuro mejor, quiero seguir creciendo. Y lo que más me gusta y lo que yo siempre quiero para todos lados es la justicia. Entonces, que ojalá sigamos creciendo, sigamos estando cada vez más unidos para, como inmigrantes, para poder ganar cosas y hacer cosas buenas para este país.
Muchas gracias, Lilian, por estar aquí. Ser inmigrante es algo muy orgulloso y hold on to it forever. Nunca te lo olvides porque, o sea, it's something that will be part of in history aquí en los Estados Unidos. Y yo no soy inmigrante, mis padres son de El Salvador y yo soy first generation en college y todo. Y aunque no tengo las mismas experiencias de ellos, yo veo como es duro y afecta a muchos. Y por eso también estoy aquí porque es algo que tengo mucha pasión y lo quiero seguir haciendo en mi futuro. Y muchas gracias.
Just want to say thank you so much for joining us, Lillian. This whole segment added a special kind of magic to this episode, and you guys did a wonderful, fantastic job. We thank you so much for joining us. We're really glad that you could make it.
Of course. Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
Y muchas gracias otra vez. Que tengas un bonito día. Fue un gusto conocerte.
Igualmente. Bye.
Okay, so I will now be just finishing up the conversation with our last guest speaker. Sorry, Elizabeth, we've been keeping you waiting for a little bit, but I will now introduce you, and you can go ahead and introduce yourself, actually. I'm sorry.
Hello. So yes, my name is Lizbeth. I'm a junior currently, and I'm also first generation. So that's why I was very interested when Chloe brought up the podcast, just because of the firsthand, secondhand experience. Sorry, excuse me, secondhand experience, but more so just being able to see like what my parents did and my whole family really, and then just to give back and just be appreciative of that.
All right, so perfect. Just to start things off, Elizabeth, we just wanted to ask you, like, what immigration means to you in your own words and, like, your own interpretation of the immigration.
I would say it's definitely, I would see it as an opportunity, coming from, so my parents came from Ecuador, and, it's not the most economically wondrous place. It's very agricultural heavy. And so just, it's immigration, especially to the US. There's the American dream that everybody is so fascinated by. And so at the end of the day, for me, immigration represents just an opportunity for not only those who chose to take on that. It's not an easy journey, especially like if, you didn't come in completely legal and it was more of like an illegal route, just getting in here. But again, at the end of the day, it's a sacrifice for what you know could possibly be of like prosperity. And then also thinking of like your future generations, like your own kids and so forth, and just kind of being able to set them up in a way that you didn't necessarily completely have.
That's a really beautiful perspective. And like touching on some other things that we've talked about throughout the episode, there's like a certain like essence about that we've seen, the trend of like immigrants that come in with such like a perseverance and determination to make things work and to really like try to establish their own American dream. And so I really appreciate you answering that.
Yeah, I as well also agree. A lot of the words that you said, like opportunity and sacrifice, stuck out to me because I myself use those words when I'm kind of describing my experience as a first gen and kind of the relation with my parents. I think being here today is solely one opportunity that I think many of us would love to have the chance to have. So I'm glad you're here. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think is the most difficult task that immigrants in this country have to tackle, especially when it comes to the political legislation that has been administered?
I would say, I guess, just navigating your own identity, I would feel, because personally speaking, that's kind of been, as a first generation person, a student, it's really been, and then just in general, I feel like, when you immigrate to a new place, you have to acculturate, the dominant culture, because that's like how you have to, I mean, there's no other choice, like, because you have to like, like acculturate yourself to the norms, and that's how you then whatever get your prosperities and down the line. But I think it's just the identity, like the self identity part of it is kind of the most challenging, especially like when like the legislatives and like political side of immigration. I feel like it very how like politics is already just polarized in general, and you have a really like liberal and conservative, and depending on whatever spectrum that falls on, I feel like the words used to describe immigrants has shifted over time, and some are not acceptable, like alien, and elite, the term illegal for like describing a person. I feel like that has just like a intrinsic like damaging effects, just because you left your home and now you're far from your home, but you still have like those roots that you would love to conserve and not forget about. But now you're also in this new place full of new people who don't understand what it's like to go through that, like immigrate, or even have parents or have your family members be immigrants. So I feel like that would be kind of the most, well, for me personally, like saying, like, I think that's the most difficult thing to navigate, is just solidifying a solid sense of self in a different, or just, here.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you on that, and I think it's important that you brought that up because we haven't talked about that yet. But I think it's something that many first generations can relate to, because I myself always say that I'm like Hannah Montana and I live like the best of both worlds, because I'm here at school and I have all these opportunities that it's part of like the American lifestyle, I guess, going to college, getting your degree. But then I go home and of course I'm with my family and like consumed with all the culture and like talking Spanish and etc. and like all that stuff. So I really liked how you put that. And like, although it is a struggle that many of us can like kind of have to go through in our lives, like it's also just what makes us who we are, I guess. So it's a good and a bad, yeah.
No, yeah, totally. And I think oops. I think it's something that, also it's look at the glass full, not like empty, because it does make us who we are. And I guess there's also that essence of just really being grateful to be here and be able to even, I guess, have to struggle with the nuance of the identity in and of itself. So, and then, it does make us like stronger at the end of the day, character development and all that.
Thank you so much for that. I think the assimilation aspect is interesting. My grandfather was an immigrant. He immigrated from Hungary when he was 5, and growing up in a very strict family, he definitely fell victim to like the conservative populism that we see like in the assimilation, often with white immigrants more so. And so that is definitely an interesting topic. And thank you for bringing that up. For our next question, there has been a recent push for an increase of anti-immigration legislation. And how do you think current legislation is affecting the future of students in the United States?
Yeah. So, when it comes to immigration, like policies and things of that rhetoric, I feel like me personally, I not that I choose to turn a blind eye, but I just feel like it's especially remember like the ICE raids going around, and then there was all those things coming out of like the where they were being held, where people, women and children, were being held and separated families. I just feel like that is so it's like heavy, and I feel like, I mean, me personally, I'm like starting to really navigate and figure it out, but I just feel like when it hits so close to home, like it just breaks my heart in a way where I just kind of have to just like step away, and I like can't think about it because it's just so easy to feel so hopeless, when those policies and legislations seem like they're so far out of touch from us, and I guess that's kind of a point of view type of thing, like, because so I'm like, wanting to just be more involved and understand those things, but the push for the anti immigration, movement, I feel like that just would negatively impact the students, just it's crazy because sometimes some of these things feel like they're self-explanatory, but a lot of people really don't grasp the concept of how, like, I guess complex and intertwined everything is, because if you're legislatively like pushing for kind of like seeming like against these people, it pushes that narrative again of just like you don't belong here, like, so for students who are here and really striving to um, pursue their education and things of that nature, I think it just adds on to an already like just heavy thing that they have to kind of carry on their shoulders. um, and again, I just think it's the nature of the politics and immigration. It's very nuanced, I would say, honestly, just because it's the people who are in power, currently, because you have to ask yourself, like, they're operating for the in terms of like the nation, like that. And I feel like it's so easy to just overlook this pot like immigrants as people of the nation as well, like, and I think that's where there's like a little blurred line, because people don't want to say that they're people of the nation because people are like, but they're not from here, they're foreigners, like. But then with what you guys were saying earlier, like, this nation was built off of immigrants, like immigrant workforce, and so it's you know yeah.
So, to continue with legislation, in 2021, the Biden administration attempted to push the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021, and the center of this bill was granting an 8-year path to citizenship for illegal immigrants in the United States and giving immediate green card eligibility for farm workers, temporary protected status recipients, and those who came to the U.S. as minors. But this bill was turned down. Currently, the Biden administration is trying to push this bill once again. Biden believes that this will improve a quote unquote broken immigration system. How do you feel about this statement? And would you say you agree or disagree with this statement?
I I think I definitely agree, especially if there are, immigrants who have been here for, 8+ years even, and, are even through their work, like even if they don't have like documentation or things like that, like they still pay taxes as well. So I feel like they're active contributors to the, again, like the economy. And I would say that just, I guess, personally speaking, like most of my family is still, undocumented and continues to work. So I guess it would just, I agree because it would get rid of that shadow of gloom of like, like I can't make any mistake and I can't afford it, to living in fear basically, because there's always that chance of like, we're going to get deported back, and then all of this life that we made here is essentially just like means nothing. So I'm definitely for, that bill getting passed, just because, those people are they're doing things that a citizen would do already, except that they lack the added, rights of being a citizen, and it's what's missing. So I'm definitely for it, and hopefully, it gets passed.
Yeah, so to continue off that, how do you think we as a society can better push for immigration advocacy?
Let's see. I think a big disconnect would be maybe just that, um, just awareness and like real like proper education of the like nature of immigration, and also like having people who have experienced it firsthand or secondhand, having those people share their experiences and their life story even, it does, because there's, you can't understand something that you have not fully, I guess, experienced, or know somebody that has experienced it or gone through it. So I think that's where, like, as a society, just a more collective effort to not only like educate on immigration policies and the nitty grittiness of things, like just like when it comes to it, I think it's important to also really focus on the actual people and the experiences that they've gone through, because I think that's where the disconnect kind of comes about, where we forget that they're act like these immigrants, they're people, they have lives, like there is a personhood there, so I feel like that's where we can begin to just create a different awareness and understanding of immigration itself.
Why do you think that this is important for students who aren't necessarily from a immigrant background to consider this advocation?
um, it's definitely important for students to you know consider this, just because as students we are that future generation, like, you know what I mean, like us, and then those that generations that are coming after us. But just very like importantly, as students, I feel like it's so easy to forget just how much power there is in collectivism, and really just us as students being the fact that we are that future generation of stepping into positions of power, but also just mainly like, like I was saying before, where it's hard for somebody to completely like understand and comprehend, immigration itself, being that, you don't have that experience with it, like personal experience with it. So that's why well, I would say it's really important for students who don't have that in their families, or like family or friends and family, then they will gain that perspective, that worldly perspective, which is just also important in general.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you said. I think that our generation and students are the future for this country, and we really need to start talking about this because we're going to inevitably be the ones who are going to create a change in this system. So, thank you for your response. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much for coming to speak with us, Lillian. I know that this ran a little bit longer than we expected with you, but I really enjoyed all the points that you brought up, and I just wanted to say that I agree with what like a lot of what you said, and I think that you're right. We are the future, and it becomes our responsibility to start these conversations and to just advocate for what we need because not only do we resonate with it personally, but it's just something that may be affecting peers around us, other individuals in our families. And I think it was great. It was a pleasure meeting you. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And this was great. Thank you, everyone, for joining the conversation today. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day. If anyone wanted to say anything, you can add on something now, but if not, we're all good. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you guys again. This episode will be on our Instagram at Civic Justice SBU, and it will be on our YouTube, so make sure to be subscribed to that. We will be releasing new episodes in the next coming weeks. Still continuing the conversation of immigration, but we will have different guest speakers for that, and we will be touching on different questions. So thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for everyone that participated, and thank you to my team for helping me put this together. We hope to see you all soon.